The Crown's third season filming continued on Thursday as Olivia Colman was spotted in her costume as Queen Elizabeth while recreating of the horror Aberfan disaster, which claimed the lives of 144 in 1966. Shooting in the Brecon Beacons, the Broadchurch actress, 44, looking incredibly determined to recreate the moment, which was particularly poignant as the monarch famously came under fire for the delay in her visit to the site after she took an entire week to attend and pay tribute to the victims. The Queen's late private secretary Lord Charteris later said failing to visit the site sooner was the monarch's biggest regret. When asked by former Conservative MP Gyles Brandreth if the Queen had ever put a foot wrong, he responded, Aberfan. Olivia was clad in a near-identical orange coat with a fur trim and coordinating hat to the outfit the Queen wore on her visit to the site as she walked through a sea of mourners. Joining her on set was being human star Jason Watkins, who is playing Prime Minister Harold Wilson on the show, and he too was perfectly made up with a slicked-over grey hairstyle and a sharp grey suit. Just a day before, Game of Thrones star Tobias Menzies was seen kicking off his role as Prince Philip while filming the scenes to depict the royal visit to pay tribute to the victims of the devastating accident. Looking the part, the 44-year-old actor was spotted in the back of a black car while recreating the aftermath of the tragedy. Prince Philip notably visited the scene of the disaster at 11 a.m. the next morning, following the visit of Lord Snowdon, the Queen's brother-in-law, where he spoke with workers and parents. One week later, the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen visited the site of the tragedy to pay their respects to those who had died. Haunting photos from the day show the royals walking with officials from Aberfan as the main rescue phase of the disaster concluded. The Queen was presented with a bunch of flowers from a young girl, with the inscription reading from the remaining children of Aberfan. Tobias looked somber as he sat in the back of a car while filming the emotional scenes, clad in a fitted black suit and matching tie, paired with a black overcoat. The actor was surrounded by a procession of extras playing the part of mourners, dressed in 60s garb and carrying funereal wreaths. The harrowing scenes saw the royal at the head of the funeral procession, with black police cars topped with wreaths following closely behind. The procession saw actors who appeared to be playing the parents of the 116 child victims walking down the street. Filming also took place outside the recreation of the Pantglas Junior School where the disaster happened. The first funerals for 5 of the children took place on October 25. A mass funeral for 81 children and 1 woman took place at the town's Bryntaf Cemetery on October 27. The victims were buried in a pair of 24-meter trenches, with 10,000 people in attendance. The last victim was found on October 28, 7 days after the disaster. Filming got underway in Cwm in Wales last week, with the latest series of the drama exploring the Queen's response to the tragedy in the Welsh mining village. An entire generation was almost wiped out when 150,000 tons of coal waste slid down the hillside before engulfing Pantglas Junior School on October 21, 1966. The disaster killed 116 children and 28 adults. An additional 6 adults and 29 children were injured. Pictures from the set show extras and cast members clad in 60s garb, with retro cars dotted around the set. Production teams were also working on a recreation of the Pantglas Junior School, where the disaster happened. Cwm is around 15 miles from Aberfan. The disaster unfolded following days of heavy rain, when excavated mining debris from the Merthyr Vale colliery became dislodged and tumbled down the hillside. Waste material had been piled in a mound on the site of Merthyr, above Aberfan, for years, even though there were numerous underground springs below. Children in Pantglas Junior School were about to start their lessons at around 12 p.m. when 1.5 million cubic feet of liquefied slurry crashed onto the school and a number of nearby houses. The slurry demolished and engulfed the building, filling classrooms with thick mud and rubble. About half the children from the junior school were killed in the tragedy, which happened on the last day before half-term. Witnesses said the noise of the impending avalanche sounded like a low-flying jet or thunder. Desperate parents rushed to the scene and clawed at the mud with their bare hands, clinging to the hope that the sons and daughters they waved off just hours earlier might have survived. Some school staff were killed trying to protect the children. School meals clerk Nancy Williams threw herself onto 5 children, who all survived. When her body was recovered, she was holding a pound note she had been collecting for lunch money. Deputy Headmaster David Bainan attempted to use a blackboard to protect himself and 5 children from the slurry engulfing the school, but he and his 34 students were killed. Coal bosses had been warned about flowslides prior to the disaster, and, despite a 76-day public inquiry, no one faced prosecution or lost their job. In the aftermath of the tragedy, the Aberfan Disaster Memorial Fund, ADMF, was set up and gathered donations totaling £1. $75 million. Remaining tips were removed following a fight by residents of the village after the government and NCB had protested about the cost. Series 3 of the Netflix drama is expected to be released in 2019, with Olivia Colman taking over Claire Foy's role as Queen Elizabeth II and Tobias playing the Prince, following Matt Smith's portrayal of the royal. Helena Bonham Carter will play Princess Margaret. Fans will get to see the turbulent journey in Margaret and Lord Snowdon's marriage, eventually leading to their split in 1978, a controversy among the royal family at the time. Margaret's marriage to Lord Snowdon was seen by fans in the show's second series, as she fell in love with the dashing aristocrat and decided to marry him in what proved a surprise to some. Despite a few years of happiness, the marriage disintegrated, with Lord Snowdon uninterested in settling down as a royal husband and spent much of their relationship traveling as a photographer.